Okay, so we've been tasked with debating the question who or what should be in control. And we have some wonderful panelists here. So El Mhamdi from EPFL in Switzerland, he's going to draw on his expertise on robustness in biological systems to defend the machines. Dorsa Sadigh from Stanford, she's going to draw on her research on algorithms that interact reliably and safely with people to tell us that both should be in control. And finally, Gaia Dempsey, she's going to use her expertise in reality augmentation to tell us that humans should be in control. Okay, so let's start with the most controversial one, which got the fewest number of votes, as Max showed this morning. So let's hear it for the machines.
Thank you. So, I think once we will settle some semantics, I think we'll see that we agree on basically the main goal. So I'll talk in the premise that we have the common goal of preserving interestingness in the universe. By interestingness, I mean life, and of course humanity. And the other premise is that we have aligned superintelligence exceeding human abilities. And I believe it is important to have some, to just like acknowledge what we are here in this panel. Imagine 8 million years ago in East Africa, a bunch of Australopithecus talking about the prospect of some upcoming evolved apes in the Homo genus, able to light fire when they want, protect themselves from predators, and use sophisticated tools like silex. This is an understatement for what we are. Now imagine them able to talk about the prospects and plan for the prospect of even smarter beings with public education, healthcare, libraries, and the internet. This is still an understatement, and I think it is important to acknowledge with humility what we are in the face of what we are talking about. We're talking about we are talking about super intelligence exceeding human abilities in every task. In every task includes the task of preserving life and humanity. So we would have super AI better than us in deciding, and including in deciding how to save us, taking some counterintuitive measures to preserve us as much as possible, and then life in the cosmos. And in that situation, as Elon said 2 years ago, the problem with humans is that we will be a bottleneck. We have a bandwidth problem in terms of communication ability. So again, I'm also talking about the premise of biologically constrained humans, not augmented humans. So biologically constrained humans would be a bottleneck, just as telling the Australopithecus from 8 million years ago, for some safety critical situation, would you want this mother to have a cesarean surgery now, otherwise she will die? And then, yeah, the Australopithecus would tell you how much bananas I would get for that. Like, this would be a bottleneck. So I think it would, at some point, it would become irresponsible to require human approval for urgent matters, for some existential risk decisions. Imagine a flyby, a black hole flyby that threatens to take Earth off orbit, and then the argument to be convinced for the decision is so long, humans can't read it. And unfortunately, interesting things tend to have a big Kolmogorov complexity. That's just like a big word to say incompressible. Interesting things in this cosmos can't be compressed in one tweet, unfortunately, despite what the president of Puerto Rico might convey. And so I believe if we keep discussing, and that's, I hope, what we will do, we will see that Putin, for example, if we say that for safety critical task, AI, super intelligent AI would need human approval, we would just end up with a cute situation where, in fact, like if we don't bottleneck it, like super AI would just like let us think we really matter in the decision. So I think there would be good arguments on both sides, but if we do things right to preserve from existential risk, we would end up by having super AI protecting us, which I hope we will do. And as just like a last point, for those familiar with the simulation argument, imagine a super intelligent being keep thinking about the cosmos and realizes that whoever sadistic kid is creating the universe has been sandboxing us with rules such as the speed of light. And then finding tricks to keep this sadistic kid running the universe and not switching it off, just as Instagram and Snapchat is very good today at having teenagers not switching off. So we can keep thought experiments and then realize that there would be safety critical existential risks for which humans would be just like the Australopithecus, unable to understand and unable to get an explanation in one tweet that we can decide on.
Okay, so how will you summarize your position? Machines are protectors?
Biologically constrained humans would be a bottleneck and irresponsible to manage safety critical
How
decisions.
about something that Anthony can write
Bottleneck.
down?
Humans, okay. Biologically constrained humans are a bottleneck.
Okay, bottleneck. Awesome. So Dorsa, bring us a little bit closer. Let's share some of this control.
Sure. This is working, right? Yeah. So I think, yeah, setting the assumptions is right, and I agree in terms of like we need to have like a set of assumptions when we're thinking about this problem. And when I was reading the question at the time, the assumption I was thinking was humans still remain. So we still have humans. And as long, like it's not like the case that we have super intelligence, AGI taking over the world. Like it's the case that we still have humans. And if we have humans, these AGI are going to be there, like humans created these and are going to be there for the humans. So then if that is the case, well, the AGI needs to understand humans' preferences. So it goes back to like Stuart's talk in the morning. Like there's humans and there's AGI and there's this kind of like objective, humans objective that's hidden. And this hidden objective needs to be known by the AGI. So even if the AGI is super capable and just like looks at the person and the person by even with blinking, the AGI decides to go ahead and like start the breakfast or do everything for the person. Like the blinking is the control that the person is putting in. So that's why I think it has to be both. Like it has to be both the human and the machine or AGI or robot kind of coming together and do the task. Because at the end of the day, the robot needs to understand humans' objective or humans' preferences. So that's kind of the main argument that I think like both of them should come together. There's like another point that I wanted to make, which is kind of this case that if I have machines and then they have some objective, let's say it's not the human's objective, and they're optimizing that. If that is the case, which is usually the case for us because it's hard to write reward functions or write objectives, in that scenario, we might get behavior that influences people. Like if I look at like my Facebook page and if I see like an ad for like shoes, like I'm going to click that, and in some sense, you might say, well, the machine is controlling me. Like that ad that I'm getting is controlling my behavior. But that's just coming from a different objective and misspecified objective. So I think it's just a problem of like coming out. Someone else wrote that objective that I should be clicking on this ad. So at the end of the day, I think it's both of them coming together. I think the effects of these side effects that we get from other objectives, misspecified objectives, can be hard and can be harmful. And we should think about that, and that's kind of the AI safety problem that we should be thinking about. But at the end of the day, the two should come together.
Okay, and what would be the short summary of your position?
Short summary, humans still exist, so.
Okay, so humans still exist. Tell us why they should be in full control.
So I also feel a little bit like some of the other panelists earlier, where I'm not sure what I selected on the survey that got me in this position where I'm arguing this particular point, but I'll do my best to sort of state the arguments for why humans should retain control. And I also just want to caveat and say that I think that control is not very clearly defined in this statement. So there's a difference between saying, you know, should an AGI control resource allocation globally? Or should an AGI control, you know, all of the sort of infrastructure that runs, you know, our day-to-day society and cities and, you know, governance, versus, you know, should an AGI decide my personal individual day-to-day actions, or should I still retain control of my own free will? So I think there's sort of different definitions of what control can mean, and that's probably longer than we have time for in this debate. So if I were to argue for humans being in control, I'll also just reiterate the definition that we started with, which is at the beginning of this conference, you know, Max gave the definition that AGI, in the way that we're talking about it here, is about replacing all cognitive tasks, not every single thing that a human can do or experience. And cognition purely, the definition of cognition, in my view, is not equivalent to ethics, empathy, emotion, complexity, chaos, entropy, creativity, or meaning. And so there are a lot of things that at this moment in time, the mechanisms for increasing our capacities around data processing are not necessarily equivalent to those other things. And I'll also just say that I don't believe that ought statements are, I don't believe that ought statements can be derived from is statements. So I do believe in augmenting human cognitive processes around math and spatial thinking and logic and reason. And I think that there's a lot of ways in which our ability, our input-output ability, can be augmented. And that I'm actually a huge proponent of selective delegation and human augmentation of certain kinds of control. There are many examples of things that I don't think humans should be in control of and that an AGI would do a much better job of controlling. But I will essentially state the case that at the current moment, humans are the only realistic agents that we know of that can act as the connective tissue in complex decision-making that involves a set of non-logically consistent ethics and a wide variety of diversity in human preferences.
Awesome. And your position would have the title?
Connective tissue.
Connective tissue. Okay. So I've heard a lot of, I think all three of you have mentioned that maybe what we're disagreeing about is semantics. So let's just take a few rounds and I'll ask you a question and just tell me what were you thinking in the moment, if you can remember, when you voted for humans or machines or both. What were you thinking about? For example, what did you mean by humans? What human did you have in mind? So let's start from here.
I actually think I voted for both.
Oh, okay, Max. Max, that's your. Okay, but even if you say you voted for both, then what human did you have? What type of human did you have in mind? Did you have a human in its current form, a biological human, or an augmented human, or sort of the ideals of humanity?
I would say in sort of this argument that I'm constructing, it's certainly an augmented human that has dramatically increased capacity for long-term thinking and that has utilized the tools at our disposal around augmenting our cognition across all of these different axes that AI is clearly far superior in without necessarily giving up some of the idiosyncrasies that make us interesting. And I actually really appreciate that you started your pitch with the idea that we share the goal, or we should potentially share the goal of preserving and increasing interestingness in the universe.
Okay, what about you? Bottlenecks. Which are the bottlenecks?
Just like on the semantics, I just want to specify what I mean by control.
We'll get to control. How about we do humans first, then we're going to talk about our assumptions about machines very, very briefly, and then we're going to talk about what do we mean by control, or at least what did we mean when we started. Yeah.
Cool. So I completely agree with what you said, especially in the conclusion that for now, machines are not able, whatever. But I'm not talking about for now. We're talking on the premise that AGI is there, it exceeds human ability and in everything. So your question, what do I mean by bottleneck?
Yes.
It is the communication bottleneck. So there are some safety critical tasks for which the time to explain to a human is longer than the time required to take the safety critical decision.
So you would say that your argument holds as long as we're talking about humans in probably their current form.
By humans, I mean biologically constrained humans.
What about you, Dorsa?
Yeah, so I agree with the points that are mentioned. And then, yeah, there are some tasks that, of course, the machine is going to be better at it. Like when it comes to a self-driving car and the self-driving in safety critical situation, there it might be very difficult for a person to decide in that situation. And maybe, sure, the machine should take over control in that situation because you might have better decisions, like making decision powers in that scenario. But there are also other scenarios where humans are better at it. So when I was thinking of this, I was thinking humans are capable at some things, and then at the end of the day, robots are capable at some other things, and they should augment each other. And also, just to add one more point, so there are also tasks that just, let's say, machines are very good at it. So there are tasks that my phone can do that I cannot do, right? Like it's an augmentation of me, augmentation of my brain, and I trust it, and it does the job. But at the end of the day, it's kind of serving me, right? It needs to know my preferences, right? So there is that relationship between my preferences and what the phone does. So that's why I still think it has to be both, because it needs to know what my objective is, going back to the objective point.
What about control? So you spoke quite a bit about different types of control. What kind of control did you have in mind when you were writing your argument or when you were choosing your position?
I'll sort of reiterate what I was saying, which is I think I'm a huge proponent of selective delegation.
Okay.
Of pretty vast swaths of tasks and decisions. And so I think, that there are specific types of control related to meaning making that I would like to retain control over and that I would like humans in the future to retain control over, that I think need to remain under each individual's personal set of preferences and that no one else can be a better expert on than they are. But there are all kinds of sort of managerial tasks around individual lives and as well as societal, such as self-driving cars, medicine, all kinds of different areas where I'm perfectly comfortable relinquishing control.
Just very, very briefly, since I also want to open it up for the audience, any comments that you'd like to make related to control?
Yeah.
Well, go on.
Just like I mentioned this threshold of tasks for which the decision is longer than the time it needs to be taken. Let's now take the safety critical decisions for which the time to explain to a human is smaller than the time needed to take the decision. If AGI exceeds our cognitive abilities, it will be able to convince us for the safety critical decision. It would be just cute to say both. Like, let us explain to humans who have 3 hours, explain to them in a very good way to take the safety critical decision, destroy the asteroid, and then they will say destroy the asteroid, and they will feel very empowered, and that's cute. I'm okay with that. I'm okay.
Assuming that the machines are aligned.
I'm okay with that. Yeah.
At least that they want to protect us.
Assume the end goal is to preserve life and humanity.
What about you, Dorsa?
Yeah, similar things. And then I feel like it doesn't stop there. Like the AGI or the machine can influence you, and that's control, right? Like the AGI convinces you that you got to do this, and then that's control that the AGI has, and then you do something. But it doesn't end there. Like you can't. I feel like from the control perspective, the reason that I'm thinking humans should also always be in control, still be in control, is if the AGI is influencing you, and then you see results that you were not expecting or you were not hoping for, you should go ahead and change again the objective or change something about it, and still be in control to get different set of influences.
So I'll open it up to the audience. I think Jan Tallinn, if he's here, you had a fantastic question. I think relates quite closely to what Dorsa was just saying. So maybe you want to phrase it yourself.
If I could really quickly fish it out from my memory. I think it was, how do you differentiate between informing and manipulating when it comes to kind of, advising humans who are supposedly in control?
I think that's a really fascinating and important question, and the nature of perception and the nature of even observation in scientific experiments is that the observation itself changes the outcome of the experiment. So if you sort of turn that around and say observing any information is going to change the person seeing that information. So there's a very fine line, and I would say that that one sort of pathway that could support and I think further research could be done in this area, is in understanding how rationality, how we can utilize the AI system that was presented in the technical session earlier to sort of distill down rational arguments and present them without too much emotional content. But I think that that's really just the beginning and something that we should study much further.
No. Yeah, please.
I would just like to sum up. But it's very important to keep in mind that we're in a thought experiment. We always assume that machines exceed us in cognitive tasks. So I think it's very good for the rest of this conference to go ahead and stop always repeating yeah, there might some tasks where the robot might not be as good as a human. We're in a thought experiment, of course. For now, my paycheck comes from finding bugs and proving that AI is not reliable, and I will keep doing that. And I think I will die before I would see AI for which I could give control. So it's very important to keep this thought experiment that we're talking in the prospect of AGI, exceeding humans in every capability, including knowing what we would want to want. And this is something we're bad at.
Okay, thank you so much to the panelists. Help me thank them.
Thank you.